As the president's legal strategy takes shape, rather than wait for all the evidence on the various days in court, I've decided to do my patriotic duty for a minute, refuse to listen to Kayleigh McEnany, and blindly accept the correct conclusion from the networks that are always objective and accurate and working on behalf of my country's values and law, and not on behalf of the candidate who I can also trust is looking out for me and not himself.
Biden with this message Monday.
This election is over.
Which is weird because just last week the mantra was, it's not over until every vote is counted. There are votes that remain to be counted, and the counting of some votes remains in dispute. So this sounds more like it's not over till I say it's over. But fine, Joe's word is my command. Saying anything otherwise would be a conspiracy theory. And according to Joe, it's not just my civic duty to accept his declaration of victory, but to accept it so thoroughly that I actually join his team, at least on principle, because now it's time to unify.
I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify. For all those of you who voted for President Trump, I understand the disappointment tonight. I've lost a couple times myself, but now, let's give each other a chance.
Well, hey, that all sounds great. I'm just wondering where this philosophy was last time around when the president was elected by a nearly identical margin, but instead of unify and give each other a chance, it became resist and investigate and impeach for the entire duration of the president's term. And yeah, I know you weren't in Congress at the time, Joe, but you supported these efforts. You supported impeachment. At one point, you were planning on having a Mueller lawyer fundraise for your campaign. If you believe in giving newly elected presidents a chance, it's pretty weird that you were floating ideas for how to investigate and undermine a newly elected president the last time we had one. Switching from the resistance to the unification the exact second that you gain power, that's not driven by principle or philosophy. That's only driven by power itself. Give me power when you have it, but respect my power when I have it. That doesn't sound like unity. That sounds like submission. And if it is submission, it makes me question what's in it for me if I do decide to unify. Can I expect to be welcomed, to have my views considered honestly and my rights respected? I'd like to believe that because that all sounds great. But instead, all I hear is talk that sounds a lot more like a swift kick to the knees and some boot tread in my face to lick. Because outside of your very conveniently timed philosophical awakening on unity, Joe, I'm not hearing a lot of calls for respect for the losing side. Instead, I'm hearing calls for justice and retribution, dare I say even vengeance. I assume your call for unity means for everybody and from everybody, but your allies aren't repeating that call, Joe. Members of Congress are calling for record-keeping of Trump support or complicity to ensure future accountability. A national journalist on a major TV network said it's not enough just for Trump supporters to lose. They have to face punishment too, and all the other heads nodded in agreement.
What we should be doing is shunning these people. Shunning, shaming these people is a statement of moral indignation that these people are not fit for polite society. It's not only that Trump has to lose, but that all his enablers have to lose. We have to collectively, in essence, burn down the Republican Party. We have to level them, because if there are survivors, if there are people who weathered this storm, they will do it again. They will take this as confirmation that, hey, it just pays to ride the waves. Look at me, I've made it through.
Well, I'd take it more as you can believe what you want in a free country without fear of retribution, a value on which we're all supposed to agree, and a value that Joe Biden claims to uphold.
We have to stop treating our opponents as our enemies. They are not our enemies. They are Americans.
Even if we take her statement at its best and assume Jennifer Rubin is talking about metaphorical survivors of metaphorical fires and not actually killing people, which I'd like to see her try, and we'll see who the survivor is in that scenario. But best case, what Rubin is saying is you will agree with us or you will submit. That's not unity. That's dominance. That's not freedom. That's control. And I'd like to dismiss all of this as pure silly talk, a few fringe loonies who don't represent the party or its thought leaders. But instead of laughing at the obvious flaws with these ideas, we're hearing talk of how best to implement them. Perhaps in recent weeks you've heard reference to something called a quote-unquote Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Hat tip Drew Holden on Twitter. He's got a great thread of all the references to this idea from prominent left-wing figures over the last few weeks, advocating an official government body tasked with investigating wrongdoings and repairing the damage. Think of it as a Trump Reparations Commission. That's the idea. The damage has been so severe, we have to assess the atrocity and restore those harmed. The name Truth and Reconciliation Commission isn't just made up. It does have a historical basis. Among other examples, it happened in the late 90s in Rwanda after the genocide, and it happened in South Africa in the mid-90s after apartheid. The idea that we've just endured and experienced something like Rwanda is insane, but the idea that a government truth authority is going to fix it is even more so. Call me crazy, but I don't think South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission has accomplished much unity down there. Now, is any of this actually going to happen? Is a federal commission going to declare your tweet hurtful and order you to buy a sandwich for a black guy? Probably not. But to the extent this idea is popular, I do want to enjoy the entertainment of considering its reasoning. And if it actually did happen, considering what a colossal political mistake it would be. A Philadelphia Inquirer explainer on the idea says, don't get so worked up about it. A National Commission on Truth and Reconciliation isn't about punishment. It's just about exposing the truth of what happened, no matter how painful, so that citizens can unify just like Joe wants us to. If there's no punishment component, why are so many of you guys proposing so many lists? You've got a list for this and a list for that. What's the purpose of these lists other than punishing the people who are on them? Just like my list of people who can kiss my ass doesn't really mean much unless you guys actually do it. But let's take the argument on its face. Let's say the purpose really is truth-seeking and not ideological punishment. Tell me then, who has ever been healed by a government-declared truth? Tell me who is curled up in a sobbing ball right now, just waiting for a piece of paper with federal government letterhead to console them and tell them that they're right and that everything's going to be okay. Because that sounds like a role for family, not for government. I've never healed from anything bad in my life because the government told me it's okay. I've healed from bad things in my life because a strong family put me in position to. And even if we do need some sort of national reconciliation or healing, why isn't the election itself already the proper institution for that? We disagree on issues X, Y, and Z, but we're supposed to agree to resolve those differences at the ballot box or, if necessary, in the courts. But that is the proper method of reconciliation to which we all agree. If you suddenly change the rules to say that me believing what I believe and voting in accordance with those beliefs is some sort of transgression or an offense, I think it's you who's committing the act of destruction, not me. If I'm not entitled to my beliefs and my vote, there is no reconciliation. There's only conformity. There is only submission. But just on a political level, imagine looking at the results of this election and reading this idea as the proper conclusion to draw from it. Take the disputes out of it. Assume for a moment that the election results are honest and complete. Here's what the American voter voted for. On the one hand, not Trump. On the other hand, definitely not the fringe progressive left either. Voters actually chose conservative values in numbers higher than expected in every branch at every level but the presidency. They don't want you people going crazy. They just don't want Trump either. The vote as it stands says people want to move on from Trump, not relitigate and reinvestigate and relive your Trump derangement perpetually in his absence. If the voters voted for Trump to go away, why would you conclude that actually they want him to remain the focus of your government? But that's the trouble for this party, though. They have no other focus. They're not actually organized around a value or a principle. They're only organized around hatred for this bad orange man. And if you remove the bad orange man for them to hate, there's nothing left to organize around. You guys have no love for Joe Biden. He was just the most plausible non-Trump that you had. And you guys got rocked in every election but Trump's, and you're currently fighting among yourselves to explain why. Tell me one unifying principle on which the Democratic Party stands other than we hate Trump. That's not just a request from me. That's a mandate from both the American voter and the circumstance. You will have to tell us the second you get your way and Trump is gone. Watching this party try to unify will be a comedy far funnier than your late night has been in years. For all this talk of unifying with your opposition, you guys won't even be able to unify with yourselves. But in the spirit of the good faith that Joe is asking for, fine, I'll give you some. Here are some common points for unification to which I will agree. 1. You're not a bad person for believing what you believe, no matter how odd or uncommon your ideas are. 2. You're not a bad person for voting for whatever candidate you want, no matter how odd or uncommon your candidate is. And 3, the full exercise of your views and your vote can never be seen as a crime or an immorality to be punished. If I find those things objectionable, I will defeat you with my own views and my own words and my own vote, not with a boot in your face or a gun to your head. Those are the principles to which I commit myself in the interest of unity. So how about you, Joe, and all your friends at your coronavirus super spreader victory parties? Are you in? Because if so, I look forward to hearing you call out these anti-unity lists and all your teammates calling for the punishment of people who disagree with them. And if not, well, then I guess I'll have to pass on the unity too. But in that case, can I have that old resist bumper sticker that you just pulled off your car? Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.